I wasn't able to kind of make decisions and stand by them. I had a really deep sense of sort of imposter syndrome. My confidence sort of plummeted. I was kind of questioning myself, things that I was doing.
Because the moment I was like, no, I'm not going on payroll, I need to invoice. They were like, oh, and let's add, I had my child at 16. So I was more like, no, I can't do that. They're like, child, why is everything wrong with you? You're holding a baby and holding an invoice.
And I spent the money on the offices, and we were getting it all kitted out, and we had a launch and everything, and literally within 4 weeks the turnover plummeted. And I kept thinking next month it'll be better, and started ploughing in money to keep the business going, to keep the staff on.
I didn't really have that much money. I had my savings, but I don't come from a family of privilege. I come from a working class family. So I had all of these kind of barriers that at the time I didn't realise were barriers. I just got on with it and just moved. I moved without thinking. I had an idea.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur Stories, where I'm joined by phenomenal women from the world of business who share their stories, their challenges, their successes, so you can be inspired, motivated to start your own entrepreneurial journey. If you're new here, please make sure you click that subscribe or follow button to make sure that you never miss when I release a new interview. And if you're not already doing so, please make sure that you follow on social media. At the moment on Instagram, I am at She's the Boss UK. Previously at She's the Boss INTL, but Instagram decided to take my page down for what reason I do not know. So at the moment, it's at She's the Boss UK. On Facebook, it's Daniela Gina, She's the Boss. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Daniela Gina. So please do connect. Today, I'm joined by Claire Bartlett, who is the founder of Arden Bookkeeping. Hi, Claire. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about your journey. How did you start Arden Bookkeeping and why?
Okay, so I've been in the industry for more years than I care to mention, a really long time. And I had always been really happy in my employment. I'd never had any passion particularly to take the leap into self-employment or the confidence, I guess, in myself that I could. But when I had my daughter, obviously had maternity, and your priorities change, I guess, during that time, don't they? I did go back to employment, but just the pressure of getting her to nursery on time, getting to the office. In my industry, they're not flexible at all. So going back after maternity, I expected to perform and do the same hours that I had always done. So it was a real struggle, and I ended up coming home crying every day, left with no money after childcare costs. So 6 weeks into it, we decided, me and my husband, that I would take the leap, give it a go, be self-employed, see how it would work out, and hoped to achieve a couple of days a week working from home, just something small, just bring in a tiny bit of income to help the household. That was in September 5 years ago, and by that Christmas I already had too much work and was thinking of increasing my hours. So we were so lucky, it went really, really well for us, and I've never looked back really, but it was pretty.
That's amazing. Such quick growth. Did you were you going back to maybe some of the clients that you'd worked with in your employed role, or did you have a marketing strategy that you implemented, or was it just luck?
No, of that. I set up a website. I think the key for me, I did a little bit of research, obviously, in local businesses around me, and the websites that were about at the time were all extremely stuffy, had probably been put up 20 years when the internet first started and had never been touched. They were really one page, really boring websites. So when I created mine, obviously it was quite modern and fresh and quite bright colours and things. And I think it just made me stand out from the other businesses locally, be competitively priced. And also, I think completely coincidentally, but because I chose the name Arden Bookkeeping, which the word Arden has quite a lot of resonance with the local community. because I've called it beginning with A, that automatically put me at the top of Google, Yale, and things like that. So I lucked out a bit there. So that was good.
So your industry then, based on what you're saying, it sounds like it's quite male dominated. Is that a true reflection?
Yeah, definitely. It has. The industry actually as a whole has changed dramatically in the 5 years that I've been in business. There's a lot more modern, and there's some fantastic systems out there, and it's just a lot more welcoming to women in business. And it isn't as stuffy as it used to be. But when I went into business 5 years ago, I really was looked down on by the old dogs who'd been in the industry for 50, 60 years. They were very patronising to me, and I think pretty much looked at me as a little housewife who just wanted to bring a bit of income in, and with no experience or knowledge. And that wasn't true at all. It did take me a long time to build up the reputation with the industry people, because a lot of our clients, we do the bookkeeping for them, but they have their own accountants already. So for some of our, we're just the middle woman, and the accountants that we were dealing with really just had no respect for us at all, and it did take me time to build that up, which was rather frustrating.
Right. So it sounds like it would have been quite a frustrating situation to be in. How did you kind of overcome it? How did you keep pushing in the face of kind of the offences that were being thrown your way, I suppose?
I think it was hard. Years in my industry, building my knowledge and my confidence and the respect for my colleagues. So, I'd done the hard work in that part of my career. So to go into business and feel like I had to start all of that again and build that respect again, and to not instantly be known for my knowledge and my skill set, it was actually really difficult. But I think because I had the confidence in myself and I knew what I knew, and that I wasn't fraudulent, I wasn't faking it till I make it, I think that helped. And I just had to take it on the chin. There was a few times where I might have lost my cool a little bit and said, I think you need to think about who you're speaking to. Something could be rude and just really patronising, like they were talking to a little girl. It was quite bad, and I think I can be quite feisty, and I don't stand for that. So I put them in their place, and then that kind of got me the respect, I guess.
And in terms of your kind of support system at the time, did everybody advise you to continue, or did anybody say, actually, this looks like it's too much, maybe you should go back to work?
No, actually, when I first took the leap in that September, my husband and I had set a deadline. I think it was about 6 months, and I think we were both nervous that it wouldn't work and we'd struggle financially. So we set that deadline, and if I didn't achieve, what we hoped by those 6 months, then I would put, with my tail between my legs, I'd go back and seek employment. The fact that it took off so well, and we could see the success, and that there was a need in the area for it. Everybody was just so supportive and really, pushing me to keep doing well. And my husband's been a great sounding board for me for the whole 5 years, and my friends rallied around me. So I haven't had a problem with support, luckily, at all.
In terms of then your growth, so you've grown over the last kind of 5 years. What has been kind of one of the biggest challenges whilst trying to grow, and what has been the kind of, not biggest success, but the thing that you've enjoyed about the growth process?
It's actually the same thing, I would say, that I found the most challenging but also the most rewarding, and that's probably employment. I hated, recruiting. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm not a strict boss. That's not in my genes. So recruiting I found really difficult, and having people underneath me on the tier. But also, by being in the position to recruit, I've been able to give women in business to get back into employment after maternity. My first woman that I employed, she retrained while working with me into accountancy. We actually met at antenatal when we had our children. Yeah, it was quite funny, but yeah, she wanted to retrain. I gave her the opportunity for it started off just as free like work experience in the industry, but we get on so well, and we have a mutual respect for each other, and I can trust her with my baby. My business is my baby. So then the second recruitment was a lot harder, because that was getting someone that I didn't know at all, and it took me a few attempts with that. The first person I recruited, I looked solely at their CV and not necessarily personality, and that was a complete car crash. So the next time I went complete personality and thought, well, if they don't necessarily have the skills, we can train them in that, but it's right. They need to be a right fit for the office. But that wasn't the right fit either. And now the person that we have now, Jo, is fantastic, and she fits in great into the office, but also it was exactly what we needed for the role. So it's a big learning curve. But I love the fact that I've helped. Both of them had been on maternity long term and were looking to get back into work. So I do take great pleasure in the fact that I've been able to help them do that.
So there's two things. I love that you obviously you were presented with a situation where your workplace wasn't being flexible in terms of coming back from maternity leave, and now you've created these two opportunities for women who are essentially would have potentially been in the same situation as you. And I'm going to assume that you're much more flexible because of the fact that you have been there. Also, I think that's a beautiful thing. In terms of employing people, I hate it. And I've been through very similar processes to you with my first business where, I was focusing purely first. I did it the other way around. So initially I focused on personality and then realized, actually, can you even do the job? And then thought, let me learn my lesson. Focus on the CV, and then realize, actually, you're a crazy person and I don't want you in my office anymore. So I've been there. I'm not good at recruitment at all. It's not something that I'm not interested in it, to be honest. I find it very stressful. And I always suggest that for small business owners, once they're in that growth stage, to work with a recruitment company if they can, or a specialist. Is that obviously you haven't done that? But what would your advice be for somebody that was kind of about to take on a new employee? What would you say?
I think probably the lesson I learned the most was to listen to my gut, because the first person that I took on solely on the CV, her skill set, I had questions in myself about whether she would fit in the office and whether we'd get along. But I kind of squashed them down and thought, well, she's got the skills, I don't need to be her best friend, I'm sure we'd get on as colleagues and things. And then the second time, again, my gut was telling me really that she probably wasn't the best fit she wasn't going to be that skilled to do the role that I needed. And I was just going off the fact that I really liked her and we'd get on. So I think listening to your instinct and your gut is really important. But I believe that about any area of business.
No, it's interesting because as you just said that, it reminded me that one of the ladies that I employed, who turned out to be like the craziest person in the world, because I'd made mistakes with previous recruitment, I asked two people that I trusted, not recruitment specialists, just not me, because I figured clearly my gut doesn't tell me anything. And then they said that this person was the best person for the job. And actually, now I'm thinking of it as you said it, I remember thinking, I wonder if we're going to get on, because she was much older than me. And I thought, is she going to be able to cope with I was in my 20s, and she was in her 50s. And I remember thinking, I wonder if there's going to be a power struggle here because I'm so much younger than her. And actually, that's exactly what happened. So when you first said it, I was thinking, actually, I don't think that my gut knows anything. But now I'm remembering, actually, I did think, I just didn't pay attention to it. But I think that's right. In terms of kind of making sure that the staff, once they're in place, knew what to do, knew how to do it? How did you find that kind of onboarding process?
I think it's a challenge. I think the key to it is making the recruitment at the right time. So don't wait until you're so swamped with work that it's that you have to get someone else, because you need to give yourself back to be able to train them up. So I find it a balancing act, and I think making sure that whoever you employ has a good base knowledge of whatever role it is that they're looking for. I mean, Anna, for instance, who is the lady that trained up while working for me, she was really quick in learning new softwares, and she's just, she's very switched on, so she picked things up quickly. So I didn't need to hold her hand through a lot of it. I could trust that she would, once I'd shown her things, she would be able to do it. But also that she'd ask me questions. That's my biggest hate. If you don't know, just ask me, and then a note about my answer, because if you don't down and you come and ask me the same question again tomorrow, that's when I get quite annoyed.
My issue is I hated micromanaging, so I didn't even want you to ask me, just work it out. Which is why I realized, actually, I don't think I'm not a good manager. I can be at the top and lead, but I'm not very good at managing, because I don't want anybody to ask me anything once, let alone
get on with it.
Just work it out. It's definitely a hard one. I think that moving forward, I'm going to find it difficult with the new business to ever take on staff again, because I just feel so averse to it at this point. But it's good to hear that you worked it out and you've managed to build a team that you enjoy being around as well. So I think that's quite important.
Yeah, we've really missed each other through lockdown, having to have Zoom calls, and we've said come September we're going to actually meet face to face. It's going to be incredible, and when all the kids are back at school, because between us there's 6 children under 5, so we've had our hands full between us. So when all the kids are back and they're all in childcare and nursery, then we're going to start meeting face to face. And we've all said that there'll probably be quite a few tears, because our little reunion, we've missed each other quite a lot, so which is nice.
I'm going to come back to your lockdown experience in a moment, because I just like to hear what everybody's been doing and how they've been getting through it. But one of the questions that a lot of business owners ask me, in terms of my clients, is why would you need a bookkeeper if you had an accountant? Now, I know the difference between bookkeeping and accountancy, but if you wouldn't mind, can you just kind of share with those that are watching who may not necessarily be clear on what the difference is and why it's important to have or to use a bookkeeping service? Yeah.
So it's actually a really critical part of having a successful business, but people don't really realise it. So an accountant, you will give all of your information to them months after a year has ended, and they'll put everything together, and 9 months down the line be like, so this is how you performed in that year. And that's great, but that can't help you grow your business. If you are wanting to grow and reach those dreams and those targets that you set yourself, you need live information on how you're performing, and that a bookkeeper works with you weekly or monthly, or just regular updates. You can constantly see live information of how your business is performing. It saves you the time, so you don't have to worry about the job that everybody hates and everybody buries their head in the sand about, and it's the last thing that everyone wants to be doing. So it allows you to focus on your business, but also gives you the tool and the information and the figures to take you to grow your business. So I actually think it's really critical, and one of the biggest I think misconceptions, especially if you're a small business, is that you don't need it yet. Small businesses, sole traders think, I'm not big enough to need a bookkeeper. I'll just do my own tax return at the end of the year and things like that. But you don't have the knowledge or the information, like I say, to tell you how you're actually performing and what trends are there in your business. And just the critical information to really know and truly understand your business and how to take it to the next step. I think it's something that's grossly undervalued in small business.
I 100% agree. And actually, with my clients, I always stress to them the importance of working with somebody such as yourself or an organization such as yourself, because a lot of them just don't have a clue of what their financial position is. And actually, kind of have that same approach that at some point the accountant will sort it out. Well, no, at that point, it might be too late. And the issue is too big, and it is important to keep a check on what is going on. Initially, I always say, if you can't afford it, then you're gonna have to do it yourself. But if you can, even as you said, if you're small, the size of the business is not what's important. It's can you afford to pay for it? As long as you can, pay for it. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you can still end up in problems.
Yeah, I think people are so expensive and they don't actually research into it. They just presume instantly that they won't be able to afford it. But actually, us, for instance, we have tiers of packages that for every size of business. So for a sole trader, it's probably about £35, £37 a month, which is nothing. I'm pretty confident that any business should be able to afford those fees, but it gives them the live information. So I think people need to do a bit of research and actually look into it, and look at it as an investment for your business, not just a cost that they have to pay, because the value you can bring to your business is much outweighs it.
No, I agree. And we might need to talk about this afterwards, because I actually need one. So it'd be good to have a chat offline about that, for sure. So obviously we know the benefits, and as I said, I think that and you've said it and I've said it, there are some misconceptions about how important it is in terms of your marketing and how you kind of tailor your value proposition. Sorry to be so jargon heavy, but how do you make something that is probably not seen as particularly sexy attractive to the small business community?
Well, during lockdown, we've actually just rebranded and stepped up our social media. When I set up the business, I think I felt that I had to be quite corporate and fit into the stereotypical image of an accountant and a bookkeeper. And in reality, that's not me at all, and that isn't where my business is 5 years on. So we've just rebranded. It's a much softer, more modern. You can see it just behind me. And I think from my social media perspective, I'm tailoring it a lot more to women in business, because that is my passion. Through the years, I've realised that supporting women in business, whether it's my employees getting back into business, or I think the struggles that I had my whole career, I don't want anyone else to see. So it's a huge passion of mine to help women. And I think one of the key differences between men and women in business is that women have the knowledge and the skill set, but they just don't really have the trust or the confidence in themselves, where men quite often don't have the skill, but have an abundance of confidence that they can do anything, and they'll just bullfire in there. It's a real passion of mine to make sure that women understand the figures in their business, because it is an area that is complicated and confusing. So from a social media perspective, I don't bore you too much with figures and HMRC updates and things that will make me fall asleep, let alone you. I tend to go for more confidence, motivational quotes, helpful tips that you won't know about, tax schemes and things like that. But yeah, just try and make it less about HMRC boring updates and more just about supporting businesses and all the different areas.
How do you find time for you? Because you're heading up this business, you're a mother, you're a wife. How do you find time for Claire? And what do you do when you find that time?
I didn't often find the time for myself at all. I think quite often you are put to the bottom, you put yourself to the bottom of the pile, and think that everybody else, the business included in your family, you know, like I said earlier, the business is my baby, so that all of my family and my business came before me. But I've realised that if I burn out, then there isn't anyone that can do any of the things, you know, and look after my family or my business. So it is so important to look after myself. I think it has helped me a lot take my foot off the accelerator a little bit and appreciate things. I have spent hours lovingly looking after my garden, which has been a real pleasure. We moved in a couple of years ago and now have a huge corner plot garden that I loved the thought of, but hadn't ever had any time to, you know, to actually care for. So that's been great. I love reading as well, and trashy reality TV is a great one. So
No, I've taken to gardening, so I definitely can relate to that. We moved in a couple of years ago also, and I've spent most of last spring and summer at the garden centre buying plants, and this year I've been really trying my hardest to keep them all alive, watering the lawn. Like, I've become slightly fanatical about it. I'll be out at 10 p.m. watering the lawn if I know it's going to be a hot day. It's a lot. And I also love to read, so I try to
we've got
when you feel like I can relate to it all. Definitely do like a bit of trashy TV from time to time as well, although I have been, the last couple of months, TV has been a bit of a myth, to be honest, because of lockdown. So we can get to that point now. How has lockdown treated you? I know for me, and we discussed it off air, but for those that are listening, I know for me, dealing with a 5-year-old at home alone and trying to work, service clients, and actually do like head thinking work and get some headspace has been really challenging. How has it been for you, and how have you managed to stay sane?
I'm not sure I have. A few months actually were relatively easy for us. We had a huge influx in work and huge stress right at the beginning because, you know, all of a sudden overnight we had to become experts in furlough. I'd never even heard of the word furlough. So we took the approach that I couldn't cash in on other people's, you know, suffering. So any extra time that we spent with clients, anything to do with COVID, getting them plans for the future, how they were going to survive, you know, getting people furloughed, things like that, we didn't charge any more for that. It didn't feel right to me. So there was a lot of, I don't know, hand holding in the beginning and looking after our clients and making sure we were speaking to all of them on the phone, and really being there for them. But then once we'd settled everything and we'd got everyone, you know, everyone knew what was going on, it kind of died down a bit, and we were doing okay at home, and I had the time to do some homeschooling, and I felt like I was juggling everything really well and I was on top of everything. And then, I don't know, probably mid-June, everything just came crashing down and work suddenly was just insane. We, as an industry and for my business, for some reason, COVID has actually been a really good thing. We've won a lot of new business through COVID. I think there's been a lot of people who have not heard from their accountants at all throughout the whole thing, and so have jumped ship and looked for new people, and I think it's given a lot of people time to reflect on their businesses. So yeah, the quotes and referrals were coming in thick and fast, which is fantastic, but at the same time it's more and more work that we're having to juggle with all of us having young children running around, my team all being in separate places, doing everything over Zoom. Like, it has been a huge challenge. We were really lucky in one aspect, that the softwares and our processes are all cloud-based anyway. So the move from an office environment to working from home actually was an easy one. We all had laptops anyway. We all use cloud software, and we're pretty paperless with all our clients. So that side of things was pretty easy. But mentally, I found it quite stressful trying to coordinate a team remotely, and there's so many times where if we'd been sitting next to each other and we had a query, 30 seconds and we would have sorted it out. But then because we're not, and we're all having to work flexible time to, well, my husband's got a work call at 11, so I can't switch back on until 1, and it's taking us a day to resolve things that really didn't need to take that long. So it has been difficult. I'm very much looking forward to getting back to face-to-face meetings, but I can't say that I've hated lockdown either. I have quite enjoyed being able to spend the time at home with my family and things. So
no, I hated it. I hated it. It's not, to be fair, it's not, as I think I said before, it's not been that bad the last month or two. I've kind of been enduring it a lot better, but the first 2 to 3 months, I went through a couple of bottles of wine a week. I mean,
that's just standard though, isn't it? That's standard COVID tactics for any woman.
Yeah, right, she's in bed, where's the wine? So yeah, it was quite a challenge. But similarly, actually, in terms of workload, I think my industry has done quite well because people are stopping and looking and thinking, actually, I need to work on the strategy. I need to make sure that my systems and processes are in place. I'm always banging on about risk and systems and processes. So I've had quite a lot of people come to me to support them with that. And I think definitely from a financial kind of management perspective, a lot of people are realizing how important it is to know what your financial position is, because when these things happen, at least you know kind of what you're working with. Whereas a lot of people didn't have money put aside, didn't have any savings, didn't have a buffer zone, and have unfortunately lost businesses. Lost their businesses. So definitely, I hope that the lesson that many people learn is to use services like yours and mine to help them kind of not risk proof, but risk reduction for their businesses. I think it's definitely useful.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'm gonna ask the 2 new regular questions. One is an old regular question, but the other is a new one. So the first is, She's the Boss recommends. What book has had, it doesn't have to be a business book, it can be just a general anything book, a non-fiction book, has had an impact on you that you would like to recommend to the She's the Boss audience, and why?
It's actually quite an easy question, because the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins just changed my entire working day. And I am not a morning person in the slightest, and I used to really struggle to get up, and everything was a rush, and it was just all really stressful. And I listened to it on audio, and I tried it one morning. I thought, well, I'm going to try and get up, at a reasonable hour, and I've did it that day, and I've managed to continue doing that. And it gives me the freedom in the mornings to actually sit down with a cup of tea, first of all, maybe spend a bit of time with my daughter, and it's just not a rush. I'm not shouting at her to get her shoes on. Everything's quite genteel, and it's a nicer way to start my day, and I'm not as panicked and as stressed for the rest of the day. Obviously, I've used it in a lot of other areas in my life as well. It's such a fantastically simple idea, but that one part in the morning definitely has the biggest impact on me, which is stupid, really, just getting out of bed a bit earlier. But
well, you say it's stupid, but I've been trying for at least the past 4 years to get out of bed earlier and been quite unsuccessful, so I'll definitely be adding that book to my list.
Try it. Great.
The last 2 weeks, my body has said, we're not playing anymore, get up at 5, and been forcing me awake. Well, I say my body, but it's probably more my brain wearing over, forcing me awake. But my body hasn't caught up, and I'm still getting the afternoon lull. So still working on that. But I'll definitely give it a read. 3 pieces of advice. So women are sitting at home, watching this, listening, and thinking, actually, I would like to start my own business. What 3 pieces of advice would you give to them?
Okay, so the first one I've already given is listen to your gut. I think it's just key in almost every area of your business. We've discussed using that in recruitment, but also with clients and suppliers. that kind of flows into my second piece of advice, which is just don't be scared to say no. Your client comes to you, you know, and they want to work with you. If you get a gut feeling and you think, oh, I think you're going to be a bit of a nightmare client, or, you know, there's just something that doesn't feel right to me, don't always just chase the money. It's not all about money. It's about creating a lifestyle for yourself as well, and having those nightmare clients just causes you stress. It's not worth the money that you would get from that client. So definitely listen to your gut, and don't be scared to say no to anything in your business that you know, just doesn't feel right. The third piece of advice is probably don't be scared to say yes. So I know that sounds really contradictory, but there's quite often times that opportunities will come your way that massively push you out of your comfort zone, whether it's you know, a client will come to me in an industry that I've not dealt with before, where I could just run away and say, oh no, I haven't got the knowledge on that. But actually, the information that's out there nowadays, you know, I can find out everything I need to know on that industry. There's no reason why I can't work with that client, as long as I'm willing to put the time and effort in to learn about it. So, and also in opportunities like tonight, doing an interview with you, you know, this is quite terrifying to be and sharing my story, but it's a great opportunity, and it's like I said, a real passion of mine to empower women in business. So to be a part of this is felt a real privilege. So, you know, don't be scared to say yes and take the leap into the scary unknown.
I think that's great advice, and I definitely agree and second everything that you said. And I've really enjoyed it. It didn't come across that you were terrified at all, so that's a good thing. But if people want to find out more about you, what you do, how to access your services, what platforms can they find you on?
So our main ones are Facebook and Instagram. If you just type in Arden Bookkeeping, you'll find us on both. I have a group on Facebook, which is another reason why I think you and I must be soul sisters, because the group is for women in business. It's where I'll share some more detailed information about, you know, the financial side of your business and helping you with tips and things. And that's called She's the Boss UK. So I know.
Oh, world.
I know, it's crazy. And then obviously if you just put me into Google, you'll find me on Yale, and you know, I've got all my reviews on there, so you can find out a bit more and see my fabulously modern website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your journey. It's been really wonderful to find out more about you. And thank you guys for watching, for listening. As per usual, if there's anything that Claire has said that has really resonated with you, please drop a comment so that we know what you enjoyed about this interview. And again, make sure that you like, that you share, and that if you haven't already done so, you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to be interviewed for She's the Boss, email me at daniela@she'sthebossintl.com. And I will catch you next Sunday at 8 p.m. for another She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur story.